Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State high school and college sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jackson McCarty. And Jackson, we are getting deep into playoffs, championships, and we're finally coming up on that time where we're really actually going to have a break from games happening all the time.
Don't remind me, first off. But two, yes, we are. So in Ohio, we're at like the state the regional semifinals range for a lot of the boys baseball stuff. We're at state semifinals for girls softball. And then in Kentucky, we are in the Sweet 16s for both sides there. So only, a couple more weekends, this weekend and next, before baseball's over and we have to go back to the drawing board.
And we have to talk about the Reds.
Right, yeah. Start calling coaches, see if they can come hang out with us for a little bit.
Exactly. Well, and, on the college side of things, the softball World Series is going into the finals.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk a little bit about that matchup and just kind of get a look at what's going on there. And then also the college baseball World Series is moving on to super regionals. And there were some fun little upsets. I'll spoiler it now. UC and Miami were not able to make it on from the Knoxville regional, but we'll talk about what they did, what both teams did there. And there's another Southwest Ohio team that I am going to talk about because they ended up pulling off something pretty cool.
Historic
even though it wasn't, it didn't ultimately lead to them going on, but we will talk about that a little bit later on. So let's start off with some of the games that, as we're recording right now, in a couple hours, baseball regional semis is going to be going on.
Yes.
And you've got Bishop Fenwick, the Falcons, playing Indian Hill.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've got we're very fortunate in this regard because we do have two local teams going head-to-head, like you said, here in all of 4 hours. So we'll have, the results and whatever up on the screen at some point during this read. But instead of focusing on the game itself, since it'll already be played, we want to talk more about what these two teams need to do to continue their seasons beyond this point.
Because by the time that this is out and as you're listening to this, they're going to be the winner is going to be getting ready for Regional 5.
Exactly. So let's start with Bishop Fenwick because I think that they're a really interesting story here. Maybe the most interesting story that we have remaining in the Tri-State. So the Falcons are a well and true underdog. They finished their season 15-10, 5-5 in conference. I believe they were like fourth in the GCL co-ed in the standings when the year wrapped up. They are now on a 9-game winning streak. So they won 4 coming in, got hot at that right time, and just have not looked back yet. They've found their mojo. 3 shutouts in the playoffs. That's where their magic is right now. 4 runs in 5 games. 4 runs allowed in 5 games, to be more clear there. As a whole, they bat really well as a team, 303 batting average, 365 team ERA. But again, I'm going to stress heavily and immediately that if the Falcons want to continue going on, it's their pitching staff that they're going to have to lean into. Fortunately for them, they have 2 very talented arms that they can rotate between and have shown a lot of success rotating between this year. So we'll start with Carter Williamson, senior, 36.1 innings pitched, 4-0 record, sub-2 ERA, 1.93. He's got a regular season shutout. He was responsible for one of these playoff shutouts, and then he's got 37 strikeouts, so he's right at that 1 strikeout an inning rate. And for a little bit of clarity, I'm not entirely sure if these stats are just regular season or include the postseason. There was a couple slight issues whenever I was reading over them, but regardless, had a very fantastic regular season that is obviously carried in with him. And then I want to highlight a young man who we are going to talk about. If we're doing this podcast for 3 more years, you'll hear his name every year.
Okay.
Carter Schaus. He is a freshman, if you couldn't gather by the whole 3 years thing. He is our quote-unquote big 3 because he's 2 of the mile markers here. As a pitcher, 35 innings pitched, 2 ERA flat, through one of those playoff shutouts, 66 strikeouts on 35 innings. So he is all of 4 strikeouts away from that illustrious 2 strikeouts an inning.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, as a freshman. Yes. We have, which it's not our DMA, but there is an 8th grader on this list that is horrifying.
Okay.
If you needed a tease ahead to stick around, you will get to it. But Schaus not only really contributing on the mound, but as a hitter, leading the team in a lot of categories. 403 and 72 at bats, 4 homers, 20 RBIs, 7 doubles, 2 triples, 14 stolen. Very well rounded. Gets the job done. 4 home runs as a freshman. That's going to be legit pop by the time he's ready to graduate and hopefully continue his career to the next level. So one of the genuine rising stars in the tri-state that you need to remember that plays for the Bishop Fenwick Falcons.
Okay.
So again, just to reiterate, pitching would be, if I'm sitting here predicting how did Bishop Fenwick beat the Indian Hill Braves, I'm going to say it's pitching. But Indian Hill, their bats are going to be hard to pitch around. Mm-hmm. They're a very, very talented team. They're not the underdog story, 21-8. They were kind of expected to be here. They came into the postseason a little scary, 3-game skid, but bounced back in their last 3 games with a 30-6 differential, averaging 10 runs a game.
Ooh.
Yeah. They had every excuse, I guess, to drop the ball. Coming in 3 games losing skid, you lose your confidence. You don't feel great about where you're at. You can be like, the next wave of kids will have to try to fix this and whatever. No, they said, no, we're going to get this right. And they did it in a very big way, obviously. 30-6 differential tells you exactly that. As a team, they bat .336. As a pitching staff, they have an ERA of .332. So,
solid. Yep,
you take those numbers every day of the week. And one of the matter of fact, I know that our sports department has talked to this young man recently, and another very clear rising star because he's just a sophomore, Devlin Daniel, 570 on 86 at bats, 5 homers, 42 RBIs, 11 doubles, 8 triples, 19 stolen bases. What more could you really ask for, to be perfectly honest?
Yeah, that's a scary batter to go up against.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, and it's just again, a sophomore. There's so much upwards mobility here. He's already got some fantastic fundamentals that he's putting on display. He's got a lot of natural talent. You don't hit 5 homers and steal 19 bags in the same year without it. And he's got a good staff around him, like Ashton Graham.
Well, and I think what this game, as you're going through your big threes here, this really says to me is there's just a lot of young talent in the tri-state and things like that as well.
Especially Ohio, I think. I think we get to see it a little bit more in Ohio. I don't know why that is, but I feel like they end up putting a lot of younger kids in stronger positions.
I think there's a couple things that I think play into it. Part of it is it's a lot easier to travel as living in Cincinnati proper or the surrounding suburbs in Ohio, of going to Columbus, going to Indianapolis, going to Louisville, than say other parts of Kentucky or Indiana and things like that. And I think it's also a little bit of a, just when you have so many schools in the Ohio section of the tri-state, it's going to be easier to find more kids that are playing well. You just have a massive bodies, whereas when you look at our northern Kentucky areas and things like that, it's Boone, it's Campbell County, things like that, and you only have so many schools to cover from there and from Indiana.
Yeah, I'm about to say Region 9 has the bulk of our coverage, and whereas here we've got 14 conferences in Ohio that we in some capacity cover. So yeah, I and especially whenever for example, Indian Hill being the CHL, you have a lot more access to training immediately in that region. And like you mentioned, being able to do a little travel ball and kind of bring yourself up outside of school, to where you can be like Devlin Daniel and be an impact player when you're 15 years old.
Exactly. So what you said, Ashton Graham is
yes.
Is
Ashton Graham. Ashton Graham is the guy that if Devlin's not feeling it, that's the one that you're going to put the heat on. Okay. 396 and 91 at bats. He's got a home run to his name. 25 RBIs, 9 doubles, 3 triples, 18 stolen. So pretty similar numbers once you get past that RBI mark. They're obviously Devlin having 8 triples. That's just insane. But they're both really good base running athletes that can get those extra base hits, make it work for you, do some damage, and obviously win a lot of games. 21 games in 29 tries is pretty substantial. And then, we do want to make sure that I kind of represent their pitching staff, because it is not a weak one by any means. You don't get a 3.32 ERA as a collective off that. But Jimmy Leibel is going to be the one that I primarily focus on. Wanted to bear in mind 3 different athletes, none of which are seniors. So very much a chance for this team to just continue elevating. And if they don't win state this year, you've still got a real good chance next year.
Absolutely.
With Jimmy, 34.1 innings pitched, 5-2 record, 1.47 ERA, 1 shutout, 51 strikeouts. So, moneymaker. He would be what I consider their ace, and he's proven why.
So what's your idea of if you come in? Yeah, I'll point out. If somebody texts you, says, "Hey, Indian Hill won."
Yeah.
What would you expect the reason to be why?
I would ask immediately, what was Devlin Daniels' stat line?
Okay.
Because while I don't think that Indian Hill is like we see it obviously more often in like basketball because it's such a more isolated sport, but I don't think that this is like a carry job, if you will. I would still immediately be like, that is the forefront of their team, and I want to know, because he's going to be the most crucial piece in my mind for them to not only advance through this game, but just to continue going.
Yeah.
So getting a tempo check on how he did. My assumption would be that the bats wore out the arms and, drove in 4, 5, 6 runs, and Fenwick just couldn't quite claw that back. That would be my assumption. And like I said, I do really think that this becomes pitching versus hitting.
Okay. Yeah.
In just simplest terms.
And then is there anything that you think they would need to focus on moving forward as they go on to the next the regional finals? Right?
The only real thing that it's kind of just the standard baseball thing, where it's like, I would like to see the guys in your 6 through 8 hole put a little bit more numbers on paper, just because it's like I don't want to have a dead zone in my lineup. And so if I can see some of that production actually be pulled away from Devlin Daniel because, the guy batting in the 9 hole drove in 2, it's like, I feel much better about that, because you're putting everybody in a position to succeed, and everybody is showing that they can succeed when put in that position. Okay. So just a little bit more balance, I guess, across the way, but even still, like, you can't really truly expect that in baseball, because you're going to have your guys, and that's just how it goes.
Absolutely.
So, yes, that game is, like we said, Wednesday, so the day of our recording. Then the regional final will be on Thursday.
At 5 p.m.
Yes.
It's going to be up in Xenia at Athletes in Action. I have the bracket up here in
there
front
we
of
go.
me right
yes.
now. And I'll point out also that the winner of Bishop Fenwick and Indian Hill will be playing the winner of Plain City Jonathan Alder High School and Roger Bacon.
Okay, yeah. So we could get another local head-to-head.
Yes.
Between Roger Bacon and the winner of this game. So
because it was one of those things where I was like, as you were sitting there talking about it, and I was like, I'm just going to look at what the bracket looks like. And it was, I swear these websites always get more confusing for me.
The OHSAA website?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm like, just make a bracket. Just
right.
make a big bracket.
Yeah.
Don't break it off. But but yeah, as I was going through, I was like, oh, Roger Bacon, I know that.
Yeah, exactly. The old Spartans. We hopefully, whoever, I'm not even to pick a winner here, so whoever wins this game and Roger Bacon play, and so that way next week we have a guaranteed district or a Division 4 representative.
Yes.
That'd be lovely for
and
state
they would
semis.
be playing on the 13th, so we'd have plenty of time to talk about them.
Exactly. See, look at that. That's how these podcasts come together, folks.
Look at us. Who'd have thought it?
Who'd have thought? All right, so let's transition over here to Ohio softball. We are running out of teams very rapidly in the softball world, but we do still have Western Brown representing in Division III. They are at their state semis, so Western Brown will play Dover on Friday, and then if they advance, they will play in the title game on Saturday.
Okay.
So the softball season will be wrapped up by this next podcast recording. We'll be able to talk about that a little bit as well. But let's start with the Broncos representing our Southern Buckeye. 25-3. immediately. Which and I feel like you do get. I feel like Ohio softball is a little more lopsided than Ohio baseball is. Like you have your more dominant teams that kind of separate themselves throughout the season. Western Brown absolutely falls into that category. Worth noting, they lost to Harrison right before the playoffs started. Managed to bounce back off that, didn't let it affect them. And then we talked about Western Brown's game against Ross last week. They ended up beating Ross 8-2 to get into this spot.
Okay.
So the big three we want to focus on here: Charlie Helton. She is a pitcher, sophomore, 143.2 innings pitched, 19-3 record, 1.12 ERA, almost 200 strikeouts, 196, and then 6 total shutouts. So she's been just lights out on the mound. I want to say that she was like, her ERA was like a 1.04 or something last week, so it went up very marginally.
Yeah, it's still crazy low.
Right. And I think like it went up slightly, but her strikeouts jumped by like 9.
Yeah.
Or something weird. So it's like it works out okay. Yeah. And obviously you won 8-2 as you led up those 2, I'm sure. So yeah, she's doing pretty all right for herself. And then a couple of hitters we want to talk about: J.C. Barnes, junior, 506 batting average on 89 attempts, 12 homers, 48 RBIs, 16 doubles, and then Sophie Jamison, junior, 306 on 85 at-bats, 13 home runs, 41 RBIs, 3 triples. Of course, we made a giant deal about this team last week because of these home run numbers.
Yes.
They had like 40-something as a team. I'm sure that's now probably like 43, 44, if I had to guess, because I want to say it was like 41 last week. Yeah. But, Western Brown is maybe my favorite team to talk about from this baseball softball season, especially whenever you draw it to Ohio, because it's just like the Basham sisters. You know what I mean? Like it's horrifying.
The Slug sisters.
There you go. Yeah. Exactly. And so it's such a fun dynamic, especially when you have a pitcher like Charlie on the mound who has a sub 1.15 ERA. Like it's video game numbers, you know, and you have not changed the setting from beginner. You know, it's real good stuff. Now, here's what we know about Dover, their opponent on Friday. They also have a very impressive record, 26-3. You know, just that one win better. 10-game winning streak. These are all worth noting. These are all Max Preps numbers. So if anything's a little off, I do apologize. They are listed at a 3.33 team batting average. Brad, you want to tell me their team ERA?
1.22.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's real scary. 4 players with 20 or more RBIs. We've got the last names. So if you're going to go be paying attention for Molk, Reese, Contini, McHugh. Those are the 4 batters that tend to do the best for them. And then Molk and Reese have a combined 21 home runs.
Okay.
So, very talented team. Obviously, I don't want to do too much of like overanalyzing whenever, for one, it's not like the conference websites where we feel a little bit better about the stats we have, and then we don't really get eyes on them. So it would be, you know, disingenuous rather.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, where is Dover?
Delaware. No.
You're not wrong. I was also thinking of like the cliffs of Dover in England, but it's a little south of Canton in Akron, over on the east side of the state, like arguably central eastern side of Ohio.
To be honest, I just end up assuming that most of these teams are somewhere in that vicinity.
I do live. I kind of with where I've lived and the schools that I've interacted with in covering, you know, news and sports over time. If I don't recognize it, it's probably in the Cleveland or Eastern Ohio.
Yep.
Basically, is where I was like past Columbus to the right. And I'm like,
well, yeah, because most of the Toledo names and Columbus names we kind of hear.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you have the general sensibility to it. But yeah.
Columbus overlapped enough with both Cincinnati and Toledo.
Yes.
I, of course, was in Toledo for a while. And I heard a few, you know, closer towards Sandusky sometimes, things like that. But yeah, once you get Cleveland and Southern, I'm like, okay.
Right. It wipes out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So yeah, that game again Friday. If Western Brown wins, they advance to the title game Saturday. All right, let's move into Kentucky. So Kentucky baseball and softball, both in the Sweet 16s. The Sweet 16 games are Friday. The Elite, well, it's not the Elite Eight, but the next round would be Saturday, and then you have the Final Four and the finals next week. So we would still be able to track both of these teams if they manage to get through the next round. Let's start with baseball. Highlands, the Bluebirds. We continue. I believe we've talked about them maybe three times this year already. They've gotten, because I remember on my
I do think the Bluebirds keep coming up.
Yeah,
it's kind of how
they've done good for themselves, because like I remember previewing them whenever we were doing the Kentucky baseball like look aheads.
Yeah.
And I want to say we talked about them either last week or the week prior.
Definitely last week. Yes.
Yeah. So they've given us plenty of stuff to look out for. So 27-7-1 record, beat Beechwood 5-2 to win the 9th region. On a 9-game win streak, 342 team batting average, 207 team ERA, and that big three in quotations because Adam Fortin as a pitcher and a hitter, too good to ignore. We'll start with his hitting stats because we actually have 2 arms that we want to talk about with them today. 356 batting average on 90 attempts, a home run, 32 RBIs, 9 doubles, 15 stolen bases. Simple, easy, effective. Gets the job done. As a pitcher, Fortin has 48.1 innings pitched, 7-1, 5.19 ERA, 69 strikeouts.
Do you want to repeat that ERA again?
Oh yeah, 1.59.
There you go. Because you said it. You mixed the 5 and the 1 the first time.
Oh, did I said 5.19?
Yeah, and I was like, that's not
1.59. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm not trying to mess up your beautiful ERA here. Unfortunately, though.
It's not the best one on the team.
No, it is not. Jacob Robinson, you have the bragging rights here. Also a senior. 44.2 innings pitched, 5-0 record. 0.94.
Yeah.
Not 1.94. 0.94.
Not 9.4.
Not even a 1 ERA. You're throwing the lights out of the stadium, dude.
That's
crisp. I mean, you put either one of those guys out on the mound for this game, and the nerve level drops pretty significantly if I'm the manager. You know, you feel good about it. And by the way, he's got 59 strikeouts too.
Yeah, why not?
In case you were interested. They'll be going up against South Warren, the Spartans, which fortunately, Kentucky, we do get a little bit more access to the stats and whatnot, but I still want to primarily focus on kind of the groupings and the general trends that I noticed that you need to be wary of.
Sure.
They're 30-8. They beat Warren East to win the 4th region.
Okay.
They have a 335 team batting average, 227 team ERA, 14 team home runs, pretty solid. 7 guys with 20 or more RBIs. I want to say his name right. I believe it's Raridan. He leads the way with 44 of them. And then they've got 3 pitchers with 40 or more innings pitched. And I want to say that here, hold on. Let me do this first stat, and then I'll whatever. 2 of them have a sub .14 ERA, which is Corradini and Lobb.
What a pitcher name.
Yeah, and it's if the third guy had it, it'd sound like a law firm. But it's I believe that third guy it was like a 3.2, 3.5 range. Like it wasn't a bad ERA. It just wasn't sub 1.4.
Yeah.
And I still think it was like a 1.32 and like a 1.07 or something. Like they're very good numbers, kind of matching very similarly to what we know from Highlands.
Yes, actually.
Yeah. And so it'll be a really interesting game. I think that, okay, not to be biased, I think that the 9th region is one of, if not the hardest in Kentucky.
Okay.
It is a bloodbath, because it is your Cincinnati draw. And so it's like you're drawing the kids from right there next to Cincinnati, because when you have that big of a city, the talent is usually better. And so you're looking at like your Louisvilles, and I guess maybe your Lexingtons, but mostly your Louisville as like the competition there. So the 9th region is super duper tough, and having those pitching numbers coming out of the 9th region against some of the horrifying bats that we know that they have to go and face.
Yes.
I'm going to put more stock in that, not to discredit any of the athletes in the 4th region.
No.
But, it's just a strength of schedule thing. So I personally would lean Highlands here.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we talk about teams coming out of Columbus, and like especially Columbus proper, or even Cleveland proper, and things like that, where there is just such a mass. It's kind of like I said, where it's like when you go to these cities that have so many kids playing, you find more and more better players. It's why when especially when you have the when you have divisions based on school sizes and things like that. I like we talked about when I during the football season with Notre Dame, where I covered one of their linebackers when he was a quarterback at a small school in Indiana.
Yes.
And the level of play is just so much different, where he was just hiking the ball and QB sneaking it and getting 10 yards
Easy.
Because two guys were able to finally get on top of him and pull him down, because there was a size difference, there was a muscle mass difference and things like that. And some of that's going to play into the spread of schools and things like that. And being here in the northern Kentucky region, being able to have access to a lot of the teams and facilities that are just in the Cincinnati area, whether that's the northern end of it, whether it's the east side, west side, all that stuff. Just having that access, it puts you closer to a Louisville, in my opinion, of like a larger city than you might say a Lexington and things like that.
Yeah, well, and there's so much more emphasis on development because there are so many talented kids in the region that you have to put in so much extra work to get noticed.
Yes, if you want to play, if you're good and you want to play travel ball, summer league stuff, you're going and joining the Cincinnati teams that are going to be playing in the bigger leagues, not necessarily just focusing on your specific area, where some people don't have that kind of access, where it is too much to try to travel from Lexington to Cincinnati to play in a team, to practice every week and to play or things like that.
Right.
That benefits the kids in the Covington, Newport areas, things like that. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of the logic behind my trust in Highlands, but
and I agree.
I do think that you do have to be slightly concerned about South Warren because they are they have proven to be a very talented team. They wouldn't still be here if they weren't.
Highlands. You're favoring Highlands, but you're not.
I'm not going to be shocked if somebody texts me and says South Warren beat Highland. I'm going to be like, oh, it's like wow, that's going to be the level, I guess.
I was. It might be like a dang it.
Yeah, literally. You'd be like, yeah. Well, that makes the podcast harder, but and me. But all right, let's round this out, shall we?
Yes.
We have one more game to talk about: Kentucky softball, again, Sweet 16, and the next round this weekend, Friday and Saturday, and then the Final Four and finals next weekend.
And it's your surprise.
Yes.
Surprise team.
Yes.
Who, if you watched last week's episode. I specifically cut the game-winning runs over us going, well, they probably aren't going to make it past here.
Yeah, literally. And that was the fun, and that continues to be the fun of this podcast. Yes. I would so much rather be wrong about the underdog not getting to push through, because Holy Cross is on a genuinely such a special season this year. It's such a special run because if this was their first regional final, beat Highlands 5-3 to win the 9th region. Did you see the next note?
I know I didn't see that yet. Okay.
So, last night I was having my fun because, I am pumped for Holy Cross. And I was just kind of just scrolling through their season as a whole. And I noticed that they beat Holmes 24-16 at one point.
Yeah, we're not.
And I just wanted to say it. So, there you go.
Which I will say that does, in my brain, attribute the stat 2 down from that of, yes. Okay, that kind of makes sense why there's that many.
Yep. So they're a 300 team batting average, a 4.69 team ERA. Yeah. So they had some nasty ones. They had a couple very lopsided losses, but that has not mattered at this point.
But I also think that game that you specifically brought up is a good one to bring up when talking about this, because it shows that ERA is not necessarily a win-loss statistic.
Correct.
But is rather just a symptom of an overall team, because you could be the highest scoring offense and still give up 16 runs if you're going to score 24.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well, and especially when you narrow it down because, like, their pitching staff is very isolated to Evie Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple, like Madison Erlage, who we'll talk about as a batter here in a minute, but they gave her some, like a couple games, I believe. They gave another freshman a couple innings, and, like, those ERAs did get fanned out pretty hard.
Yeah.
But, like, when, again, you isolate it to their primary hand, Evie Thomas, 152.2 innings pitched, 16-11 record, you know, just because she's out there every game.
Yeah.
284 ERA, or 2.84 ERA, 221 strikeouts. So when you put her in the vacuum, she is kind of the team ERA, if we're being just perfectly honest.
Yes. Yeah, because to put that into perspective for people who, if you didn't process what the record was, that's 3 games that she did not get counted for.
Exactly. And I should have looked at but I would almost be willing to bet that Holmes game was one of those that she was not in.
Yeah, it could be.
Because, yeah, like, I want to say, like, there wasn't an ERA below 10 on Highlands, or Holy Cross, rather, that wasn't Evie. Because, like, it you know, it became an issue. But Evie is also a tremendous contributor on the team as a batter. She's got 410 batting average on 83 attempts, 25 RBIs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, 8 stolen bases. And then kind of her protege in a sense, I mentioned that they gave Madison Erlage a handful of innings to go out there and try as a pitcher. But she is certainly following in Evie's footsteps as a hitter right now, and hopefully that arm continues to come along. 383 batting average, 94 at-bats, 1 home run, 19 RBIs, 11 doubles, which I believe leads the team, a triple, and then 8 stolen bases as well. So, you know, it's a very functional team. And it wasn't just limited to these two. After Madison, it became like a 17 RBIs, 14 RBIs, 13 RBIs. Like, it is a very strong core. It just happens to be led by Evie.
A very consistent contribution from the supporting cast. Basically.
Exactly. You're not really kind of like going back to what I had said about, I believe it was Indian Hill when we talked about them. I don't really have that concern with them because a lot of their numbers indicate to me that it's more or less just a hot hand situation and not inherently like, oh, it's got to be this person, it's got to be that person. So yeah, Holy Cross, one could argue that they are not supposed to be here.
Sure.
That does not matter. They have fought extremely hard to be in this position and continue. I mean, beating Highlands is not a small feat. Like we talked about last week, I was pretty confident that Highlands could be a state championship contender, and Holy Cross brought them down.
Yep.
And they're probably going to have to do that again, though, because Harrison County, the Phillies, look like a very scary team. They're 33-6, beat Campbell County 8-0 to win the 10th region, 371 team batting average, 128 team ERA, 4 players with 30 or more RBIs.
Okay.
Newbie is one of them. She has 57. She's listed as an 8th grader, which, you know, teased ahead to that a bit ago. Then you got Ross with 38, Persinger 33, Highlander 31. 2 pitchers with sub 1.4 ERAs and more than 100 innings pitched. We don't see very many teams go like true split starter situations in softball. Typically, you have your starter, then maybe like a bullpen person or whatever. They've got 2 of them that they genuinely rotate between. 2 last names we've already talked about, Persinger and Ross. This is the 132 ERA and 109 that I was talking about. So it's, you know, they're scary numbers.
Yeah.
They are. It's an intimidating team, but Holy Cross has been intimidated, you know, so to speak, throughout the regionals, throughout districts, and guess who's still here? Holy Cross. So while I'm not going to put myself in the same position I did last week and be like, I'm pretty sure Highlands is going to win this, I am going to say, no matter what happens, Holy Cross, hats off to you, because what a fantastic season and what just an enjoyable storyline that we have the pleasure of talking about.
I think no matter how this weekend plays out, even if they win this game against Harrison County, and then if they lose in the Elite Eight or whatever, that's still quite an accomplishment, especially to kind of push against the narrative per se. That's that kind of gets connected to you in that way.
Right. And that is not all to say to take the moral victory by any means. Continue to fight. We are rooting for you here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of wraps us up for high school right now. So I'm going to hand it off to you and get us caught up on what's been happening on the college side of things.
See, it's fun because I was about to be like, and speaking of narratives, but no. As we kind of mentioned, there's not really any local teams continuing on in either World Series, especially softball has gotten to the finals already. I did want to just mention what's been going on with it because I think bringing a little bit of attention to the sports, no matter what, is important. And there was a major upset in the college softball World Series because the finals is set to be Texas versus Texas Tech, which is already kind of an exciting matchup to have.
Yeah, Lone Star matchup.
Lone Star, obviously a long time. I can smell people that I know back in Texas being like, "We're not rivals," being like that. But Texas, and all of the other Texas affiliated schools, Tech, A&M,
TCU.
SMU. I'm going to count as like rivals. It's a in-state rivalry. It doesn't have to be that like, oh, Texas, Oklahoma.
Well, and when you get to this point, they are your rivals.
Yes,
they are standing between you and the thing that you have worked your entire life for.
But Tech, to get here, had a major upset over Oklahoma, who has been the team. You know, like you talk about UConn women's basketball having and kind of now South Carolina women's basketball, or you talk about like Ohio State, Alabama football.
Yes.
And really actually not a men's basketball team that I can really think of right now that's been, kind of like a historical Duke.
Right.
North Carolina maybe.
Yeah.
Oklahoma ran the league for, I think, like 4 or 5 years now, where it was basically what are they going to score on their way to winning the World Series each year?
Right.
Was the question.
Or who are they going to have to play to get it?
Or what cool catch are they going to make at some point to win a game that they didn't really need to make it that impressive?
Yes.
But Texas Tech beat them 3-2. Two nights ago. I was trying to figure out how days were. Monday night.
If you guys haven't learned that we're not good at math, it's too late.
Yeah. But so Wednesday night, they are playing the first game of the World Series. Thursday night is going to be the second. I would say if you can catch that second game, and then if there's potentially a third one because it is a best-of-3 series, I would tune in.
Yes.
Because these are going to be fun games. These are exciting athletes, and it's just good like pure baseball, softball,
yes,
at its heart.
There's a spinoff here.
Go ahead.
I presume you saw the MLB invest in that new professional softball league.
Which Athletes Unlimited is the league behind it. They have been doing a lot, especially in the realm of women's sports, to help build more options for professional athletes to play at home rather than having to go overseas or go into different leagues and things like that. Specifically, like they are one of the, I think now like 3 or 4 volleyball leagues in the United States. It's them, Love Volleyball, and or LOVB, and the Pro Volleyball Federation, which is where the Columbus Fury that Joe Burrow invested in and things like that. And there's an Indiana team that uses the Fishers Event Center and things like that. And in LOVB,
there you
go. Jordan Thompson from the University of Cincinnati has been playing with them as well. But this Athletes Unlimited was more of a summer league where players who didn't want to go overseas could stay at home. And a lot of when we reported on it, we talked about how like there's only 4 teams in the league.
It was like a 20-game season.
And it's a 20-game season. If I'm not mistaken, and what they've done historically is kind of rotate players to have different teams. So it's not necessarily like one locked-in set over time.
I thought that this was their inaugural season.
Yes, but I'm basing it
Oh,
off
off
of
the
the
volleyball.
other
Okay.
sports leagues that
I
they've
gotcha.
done, because they've done volleyball, they've done basketball, and I believe they've done one other sport before softball.
My whole point of bringing it up
Yeah.
was that, in my personal opinion,
Mhm.
I think that softball would, like, if you were to start a women's basketball, softball, golf, like, pick a handful of leagues, I think women's softball would do the best TV numbers.
Yeah.
And the point of that being, like, they're investing into these leagues. Hopefully that continues to expand, because a lot of the athletes, like, obviously there are tremendous female basketball players that get to go to the WNBA and get to be on TV now. A lot of the athletes that you'll be able to see during this game should have somewhere to play on television.
Yes.
They are fantastic, genuinely tremendous athletes that need somewhere to be showcased. All the more reason to tune in for this final stretch of games, because it is really a fantastic product they put out.
Yeah, I think the thing that holds back, and I'm saying this in a like very technical of like the limiting factor, not necessarily like, oh, it's holding the
Right.
sport back. The limiting factor is the fact that softball stadiums are smaller naturally than baseball stadiums, so you can't just, the Indiana Fever play in the same place that the Pacers play.
Right.
It's the same arena. The couple other sports.
Yes.
Women's golf happens on
Same courses.
on a courses.
Right.
Exactly. Soccer stadiums are the same.
Mm-hmm.
By softball being shorter, you inherently do need either to make changes to an MLB stadium that is already being used 8 months out of the year.
Right.
And on top of that, then it would be investing in building more stadiums that I don't think every major city is going to want to have a secondary large stadium like that.
Right.
But that's why I think building it around colleges where you could have summer leagues or summer into fall for softball wouldn't be a bad idea, where they could just use those facilities and things like that.
Well, and even still, like, I think having smaller ballparks for the softball games isn't an inherently bad thing.
No.
Because, like, it can create a much cooler atmosphere.
Yes.
Like, for example, I have been to an NHL game and I've been to a minor league hockey game.
Mm-hmm.
I had way more fun at that minor league hockey game.
Oh, yeah.
Not to say, talent levels, they're all fantastic athletes, but you get a special kind of setting.
It's what I like about G League
Exactly.
games as well for the NBA, where when I was in Texas, I went to the Dallas Mavericks G League team, the Texas Legends.
Yes, sir.
Which is like just outside of the Dallas area in a different gym, but you could get second row tickets for like $20.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there, and then all the you meet all the players afterwards. Because at the time, a Purdue player that I'd covered was playing down there, and so I was like, "Hey man, how you been?" And we chatted for a minute. And so it's a cool atmosphere, and it's kind of like what we talked about with the Big East tournament with Prasco Park, where at the core of it, it's about making a community event and giving families and kids and parents entertainment and things like that.
Right.
And what's better than that than baseball and softball?
Well, that's the point of sports as a whole. Isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we've done our softball stuff.
Yes. So we'll
Catch us up on baseball.
We'll touch up on baseball here. So Knoxville Regional did not go the way of Cincinnati or Miami. UC did win their first game against Wake Forest 11-6.
Mm-hmm.
They then faced Tennessee, where they lost 10-6, and then had to rematch with Wake Forest, losing 10-3.
Yes.
Miami on the other side played Tennessee, lost 9-2, and then played Wake Forest, a very close 14-13.
Yeah.
I do want to point.
It was an electrifying game.
Yes.
Well, because wasn't Miami up like 6-0 or something
They
after an
were at
inning
one
or
point.
two?
Yeah.
And then Wake caught back, and then they just kind of chipped and clawed, and it's still exciting. Like, I know that it sucks to drop that lead, but that's kind of the nature of the beast.
Scoreless in the first, 4-4 in the second, 5-4 Wake in the third, 8-6. 11-6, 11-8. Oh no, they were on a 4-run streak in the ninth, at the bottom of the ninth.
Was it UC and Wake that I'm thinking of?
It might have been the UC and Wake game that you're thinking of then. Yeah, because Miami was down by 5, so they were 14-9 going into the ninth inning, and scored 4 runs.
Okay, yeah.
And nearly caught back up.
Yeah.
So, obviously a tough loss there. But the other game that I did want to talk about, or the other regional I want to talk about, was the Nashville one, because that is where Vanderbilt, the number 1 seed, was playing and hosting. And we did talk about it for a second because, I've said with college stuff, sometimes we want to reach out, look at the surrounding areas. Obviously there's a lot of people that like UK, like UL, like Ohio State in the Cincinnati area. It's not just all Bearcats, Musketeers, and Norse down here.
There's a wide breadth.
Vanderbilt played Wright State, a Dayton team.
Yes.
Won 4-3 in the first round. Louisville played Eastern Tennessee State, won 8-3. Wright State went on to win 7-5 against Eastern Tennessee and 5-4 over Vanderbilt, knocking out the number 1 seed in the tournament and going on to the elimination game against Louisville, who also beat Vanderbilt 3-2.
Yes.
Now, Wright State wasn't able to make it happen against the Cardinals. Cardinals won 6-0. And I think at the end of the day, if I'm a Wright State fan, I'm more than happy to see that happen, where it's like, oh,
you won.
It's like it's to bring up a Vandy game. It's like when Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and obviously Alabama wasn't the same team it was this year at the end of it all.
Was it UMBC that put down Virginia?
Oh yeah, UMBC.
They beat. That was the Virginia game.
That was the Virginia game. Yeah.
Okay.
The 16-1.
Yes.
Which it's the 16-1 seed.
Yeah. It's like nobody expects you to win the tournament, but you beat the one. Literally.
You did the thing that nobody expected to have happen.
Yeah. And you were the headline. You, no matter who won regionals, you know who they were talking about? Wright State.
Yes.
You were the belle of the ball.
Congratulations to the Raiders.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to the Cardinals, because they're going to be moving on. They're hosting the Super Regional from here. They're going to be doing a best of 3 against Miami, Florida. That is this weekend. First game is on Friday at 3 p.m. If you want to tune in for that. And just to swing through the rest, it is Oregon State, Florida State, UNC, Arizona, Auburn, Coastal Carolina, Tennessee, who who won over Miami and UC, playing against Arkansas, LSU and West Virginia, Duke and Murray State, which is another set of upset in their regionals, and UCLA with UTSA, University of Texas San Antonio, Roadrunners.
There we go. It's a nice little slate.
Yeah, and so there's more baseball to be played, and that will continue on. Cause after this, they'll be going to Omaha. And so I was going to say, do I have a date on that?
It's like a week and a half, isn't it?
I think it's a week and a half from here. Yeah, it would be the 13th, if I'm not mistaken, that weekend, and then the 20th, I think, is the finals. Yeah. Yeah, they don't like giving me dates. But that's where things stand. And like we've been saying, as these seasons come to an end, obviously congratulations to all the athletes out there that have put up their best all year and played and competed, and whether this is the end of a high school career, whether this is the end of a college career, or whether it's just the beginning of a long-standing professional career, congratulations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Yes. And one more thing that we should we'll a little bit of podcast behind the news, behind the curtain business.
Oh, yes. I'm following now.
As you've probably noticed, the feed that you'll be getting our podcast on from now on, if you listen to the audio version, has changed.
Yes.
It is now the Fox 19 Sports podcast feed. The reason for that is because we've been expanding and we're adding more shows.
Yes.
A little bit of with a lot of these, we're giving a video and an audio option. The audio options are on your podcast choice site: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, wherever. And then the video versions are available on YouTube, on the Fox 19 YouTube and the Fox19.com website, sports app, things like that. But we are adding the Gold Standard, which is the new show from Joe Daneman and Charlie Goldsmith every week, talking about all things basically Reds, Bengals, whatever's on Charlie's mind.
Honestly, just good content. That's what they're
Yes.
talking about. I did have the pleasure of listening to that first one. It was fantastic.
Yes.
If you guys haven't, we strongly encourage you to check it out. If you guys are coming over here from listening to Gold Standard, thanks for joining us for a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, hopefully we'll just continue to add more options for you guys to get your tri-state news in a more efficient or a bite-sized, if you will, manner.
Yeah. And I'll add that with the schedule, the way that we're kind of scheduling things right now, the 19 on the Clock will continue coming out on Thursdays around noon for the audio version, I should say. And then the audio version of the Gold Standard will come out on Friday mornings, sometimes around 9 a.m. at the latest, sometimes earlier.
Okay, right on. We got a little schedule.
Yeah. And I can say that's the schedule because I'm in charge of posting them all.
The audio
ones. The audio versions at least. The video versions will go up at different times, and you can always check the fox19.com website and follow Joe and Charlie on social media, and I'm sure they'll be posting those as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Jackson, that is all that we have for this week. So thank you all for tuning in and listening with us. Be sure to subscribe, follow along, and we will see you guys next week.
Have a good one.